The global African diaspora has been hungry for quite some time now. Bored of the crumbs many of us have been thrown, we are now aligning to a deeper knowing that we are sun and moon folk, sovereign souls, that we are the culture making, code switching, we are the vibes of vibes, we are the chameleons in cities and the creators in suburbs. We stand at the core of every trend the fashion industry churns out. We are the soul in the food, the hips on the beat. We are the bass, we are the melody, and we are both the breeze and the fire. And it's time we remembered who we are.
Mm-hmm.
This season of Mondo Moments is in celebration of the African diaspora. Life is made up of millions of tiny moments. I believe one of our tasks as humans is to be present for as many of them as possible. When we reflect on the unforgettable events in our lives, zoom in, and there will be those little moments that shifted or changed our heart space. These are the moments that build movements. Sometimes it's just the simple first step to change. Sometimes it's long lasting. I would like to introduce the first guest and friend that I'm speaking to on this season, Edwardo Omondi, a Kenyan musician, artist, model, superhuman, honestly, an all-round king. How did you find yourself in Mexico City? How did it make you feel? And yeah, what moved you the most?
I feel like my first approach to Mexico City was 2019, and I first landed there for a show. And I was there for literally barely a week. We were there 5 days. So I didn't really experience Mexico. The next time I went back, I was supposed to be there for a month. It was during the pandemic, and I ended up staying for about 7 months. Now that kind of changed the dynamic that I had about Mexico. As much as during quarantine, I got to meet people, I got to eat in all the various restaurants. Basically, I loved it in that regard. And I met so many people. Now, the next time I went back, which was in October, a couple of months after I went back to Boston, which the dynamic as well was now a whole different ballgame. I had people that I knew and I'd been around. So in that order, like the whole thing just changed. And wow, I fell in love with the city, the culture, the people, just I feel like the lifestyle as well. Because it's a very open scene. Everybody's curious.
Yeah.
Everybody's super artsy and interested in like, ooh, who are you? What do you do? Da da da. I'm like, ah, lovely. Like it was just, I'll take it. I'll definitely take it. But how I feel about Mexico, I have so much love for Mexico City. I actually would consider living there. Obviously, we've discussed this, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really how I feel about that city.
What would you say the differences are between how you feel free in Nairobi, say, and Mexico City?
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question. I wouldn't say loaded, but I will call it like...
Is it comparable?
Quite, but also not, because Mexico City is basically a Nairobi on first class steroids, if I may.
Say more. Let's unpack that.
Like in terms of Nairobi, yes, Nairobi is basically a smaller Mexico City. And when I say small, I mean like tiny, because Mexico City is huge. And yes, it has its touches of a magic here and there everywhere, but Mexico City is on like an overload of all that, and understanding how big it is what, like, there's just so much vastness. There's just so much in it.
Yeah.
And the culture in itself, it's beautiful. People are super curious, and it's obviously a big tourist attraction. Now, understanding that they're more open to a lot of things.
Ways of being.
Ways of life, and it would not be a thing in Nairobi. Understanding the kind of culture that Nairobi holds, the traditions, just that in itself. Nairobi is still rich, still heavily into, culture and religion and all of that. Nonetheless, it's still a big party city. Don't get me wrong, Nairobi is a big party city.
You know how to party.
Exactly. And that's really how I felt about Mexico City too. There's at least the similarities where it's a young city, at least full of youth, and everybody's super, excited for life, and everybody's trying to do everything like, oh, there's this happening, there's that happening. I feel like the biggest difference as well is just how it moves. And by that, I mean, people are more open to life.
In
People are
Mexico,
in Mexico.
right?
People are super open to life. And again, I'll use the same word, the curiosity aspect of it. People are so interested in figuring out who you are, what you do, and how they can be friends with you. At
Yeah.
least that was my experience.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people who listen to this as well, particularly, let's say, a young Kenyan listener who's not yet left Nairobi, or someone in London who's thinking about a complete new shift. I think one of the curiosities people often have is, how will I be received? What would you say to a young Kenyan who wants to take a trip this summer and is considering Mexico? Or, yeah, people are curious about what the experience really is. So how do we share this?
Wow. People are quite receptive. And I will say, whether it's more the intention behind it being they are either interested in being your friend, or you are a fascination to them as a Black person. And when I say that, I have had such experiences in Mexico. But it's like, they're not rude, they're not aggressive in no way. They're just, oh my God, it's like a shock factor. They've never seen a Black person, or some of them even have beliefs of, if you shake a Black man's hand, or a black person's hand, that is, it's good luck. And I did.
I didn't hear that.
I had such experiences. They literally came. They were just shaking my hand. They were like, "Oh," and I'm just there, like, "I guess take all the luck you want, like have it all." And that's really was my experience. Where it's like, there's no people are just curious. People are interested and super fascinated, but you don't get any side eyes or like people talking down at you or anything. There's that side of it also as well, where everybody's trying to be your friend, so that you are literally either their first Black friend, Black person they've seen. So to you, as a Kenyan young man or lady trying to go to Mexico City, you are sorted. Do not worry about nobody like judging or coming at you in any way. Just obviously, it's like any other city where you must be safe, watch yourself. There is still, enough.
You have to be careful. You have to be careful.
You got to be careful. There's enough threats around, like any other city. So just, move like a tourist, but be careful. But you're chilling. That's all I'm saying. You're perfect.
Okay, well, I'd like to lean into as well your musical soul, what you do. Would you begin to speak about how music has moved you? You are of course a singer and a musician, as I mentioned, studying at Berkeley. I'd like to learn a bit more about what your connection has been with your practice, if you've always known you'll do what you do, and how it got you to the point that you're in now.
Wow. I will try to summarize and make it quite clear.
Yeah.
So I first started singing in the church, like 8. That was my first performance. And at home, we used to sing hymns. Like my parents used to have devotion in the house. So we'd be praying and singing. And I was literally singing daily. So in that regard, I was constantly training without knowing what I'm doing, but it's just singing. And in high school, I got this opportunity to go to Turkey for a competition called the Turkish Olympiad. And the first year we were dancing, and we went there, and it was crazy to me because I've never experienced anything like that. We were like in tour buses, we had police escorts, like we were staying in hotels. It was like a full on tour, and we're just kids. I'm like 12, and I'm like, whoa. Like first you're walking around like a full on celebrity, just flipping your hair here and there. And after touching just that scene, the next year I had to go back. That was like, I was addicted. I was like, oh my God, I must go back. And the next year I went back for singing now. So I started singing Turkish music. And now in a performance.
Sorry, one moment. You started singing Turkish music in what language?
In Turkish. I speak fluent Turkish, yes.
Wait.
I know.
Just drop how many languages you've got then. So obviously you've got Swahili.
Swahili English, and then Kikuyu, Luo. And then we got Turkish, and I'm currently learning Spanish, and I know a bit of Russian, so that's around 7 languages.
This is what I mean about you. No, I want to take a moment for that because first of all, I adore it. Secondly, one of the things I'd love most about when I go and spend time with my friends in Kenya or Uganda, as a standard, people are bouncing around 4 to 5 languages. It's like, well, obviously, like English is a given. And then they're like, well, my mum's language, my dad's. Well, my friend at school was from this place.
And I know it too. Yeah.
That is, okay. So here he goes. He drops.
The several bones. I'm dead.
Okay, so carry on. Sorry, I stopped you. So you're singing.
You're absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And we sang that, and I went to Turkey again for another month of just touring, and I loved it. I came back and I finished high school, and my parents were actually hell-bent on me going to do architecture school and doing project management as my master's. I like art, so I was down. Why not? My father's an architect and it worked. Like, it's right there. My thing is, though, as soon as I finished high school, I did an artist development program for a year. Now, within this program, I learned how to play with the band, I learned how to songwrite, and I learned how to, like, function around shows. And after touching that, everything changed for me. And I was like, yeah, this is it, guys. I think this is, and I didn't tell nobody. I think it was just a realization in my head where I was just like, I think it's music, guys. And this is in 2014 into 2015.
Yeah.
Then I applied to do a BTech diploma in music. And of course, at this point, I'm telling my parents that BTech is like A-levels, and I can still go to do architecture school. I'm just, doing one subject, one topic, and that's it. I can do it. Kidding. So I did this this 2-year BTech diploma, BTech music, and I actually got it on scholarship. So of course my parents were like, no, it's fine, just take it.
Yeah. This is in Nairobi.
This is in Nairobi at Brookhouse School.
Okay.
And one of my professors, who's a songwriting teacher, was a Berkeley alumni. Keep in mind, I had never heard of Berkeley. Nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, it was nowhere in my head. I'd never heard of it. And I obviously was not keen on moving to the States. Like, after everything that we see on the media, at least what I was seeing in Kenya, I was just like, no, we don't want to go to the US. I'm Black as hell. Like, why? Let's go there. That was really my thought process. And of course, today I can speak differently on it, but like, he helped me apply, and he actually facilitated the audition and waived a couple of fees here and there because, Berkeley.
So what was the audition process? You had to prepare a song, or?
I had to prepare a song, and then I had to sight read, and then I had to give an interview of like explain why I'm trying to go to Berkeley and what exactly I look forward to when I get there. It wasn't much. Like, it wasn't much. It was over in under 10 minutes. It was pretty chill. And the thing is, I had initially actually applied to 5 universities in the UK. I was going to Leeds College of Music. There was another one in London. There was a couple of other schools that I applied in the UK, and I only got accepted like 2.
Right.
And I'd waited, I was holding. But the second I got my Berkeley acceptance, my parents dropped everything and they were like, yeah, this is where you're going.
Really? So they got behind it.
They got behind, but of course, it's Berkeley College of Music.
Yeah.
And African parents, they'll be like, what? It's like Harvard.
Yeah.
They'll be like, yes. So that's what happened. And in all reality, music was an escape for me. When I say escape, I mean, it was freedom. It was my ticket out. And when I say ticket out, you kind of understand the dynamic as to why I could not be in Nairobi around.
Right.
Just the culture. Let me not even say that because that's just outspoken, way too far out. What I would say is that the restrictions around the culture and my being were not matching.
Yeah.
We couldn't meet. There was nowhere we could meet. And in that regard, where I cannot change something, I will remove myself from that situation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Berkeley was to me. An outlet, like just an out. And I got out. And It's
Yeah.
been lovely.
So how long? So now you're in your third year?
I'm in my, actually, I'm walking into my senior year.
Okay. So the
So
course is how long? Five years?
no, it takes 4 years. The thing is, I've kind of taken a longer route as I have been taking a pretty hefty major.
Yeah.
Um, I currently study professional music, concentrating in songwriting, music business, and performance.
Yeah.
Now, there's all these sorts of different aspects to it, but this has been my process basically. And at Berkeley in itself, obviously, you are not only taking school, but you're within an entire industry, meaning you're having to build your career while taking school. And that in itself, at Berkeley specifically, is quite hectic. Because it is a quite a, at least was, a very competitive community, a very, very, very competitive industry. And it's built me, I won't lie. It has
Yeah.
definitely put quite a lot of, it's gotten things in perspective as to how the industry works.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really all to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so obviously, as you know, this podcast is called Mondo Moments. I've traditionally always forgotten to like zoom in on people's moments, mainly because they're self-explanatory. And I think you have just touched on a key moment that shifted everything for you, which was the moment that you got into Berkeley and that becoming the ticket. Do you feel that that shift into studying and being in a new country also sparked your thirst and curiosity to go to other places? So you mentioned, you know, you had already been to Turkey when you were just 12. I'm curious about your soul with travel and where that might take you, if you feel that how those moments have played into how you move in the world.
Wow. I think my premise to life, in an ideal world, actually, let me just phrase it like that. In an ideal world where I did not need money to travel, that would be my career. I would literally just travel. I would just be everywhere, experiencing life, cultures, food, different people. Um, that dynamic, I mean, I won't lie, it really has changed my entire life. When I came here, and then I was like, ooh, shaw culture, vibes. Then I go to New York, a whole different scene. And then I go to Mexico City, I'm like a whole different scene. Then you go to Oaxaca, you're like, oh my God, it just feels like you're trying different appetizers. Like you're yet to reach the main course, which will obviously be where you settle. Um, but that's how I feel about traveling. You're just tasting different scenes and it's just divine. I
Yeah.
won't lie. If in an ideal world, if I was just, if there could be anything, I would just be a traveler with a shit ton of money in my bank account. But you know, that's
Yeah.
today.
It's funny, I relate completely. I mean, people who know me will know. I think that there's two things. When you're curious about life and people, travel becomes the greatest teacher and educator. So by nature, it's kind of like that is the best way to learn because it's up close, personal, and real. I also sometimes reflect on the fact that I believe that it's in my blood with travel. So it's
Mm-hmm.
my dad is from the north of Uganda, and his peoples, the Madi, are known as Nilotics, and the Nilotic people move through.
Nylon, my father's a nylon. We love that. Hey.
Well, this is the thing. Well, that's why you've described it so beautifully, because traditionally, like throughout, you know, history, the Nilotics move. They move through the land.
Yeah. Yeah.
Across the Nile. And it's kind of, you know, I always say to people, my peoples have been moving for years. It's why I'm always moving around. And I think there's some truth in it, you know, that we are kind of growing and fulfilling so much of our like purpose here as we move, because that's what our peoples have always done. So I wonder if, there's a bit of that in it.
I definitely agree. I hear it. I see it.
Okay, so do you have anything you'd like to share about what you're working on at the moment musically? What's coming up? Or even if you don't have anything, you don't have to share anything in this moment, but I mean,
no, of course. I
look
would
out
love
for.
to. I would love to. So basically, I am blessed. This is a big one about Berkeley as well, as to why I am honestly just so happy that I went there. You get to meet the most incredible musicians, and just, you're literally sat next to, um, I don't even call them celebrity producers, but like just celebrities all around you. Basically, you're surrounded with excellence, and that's what I love about it. Now, I have had the blessed opportunity of working with some of these incredible artists and producers, and we've been working a lot of music. And throughout the year, I will be dropping a couple of singles coming up. Actually, the first one should be in August. And later or early next year, we might be dropping an entire album. So that's really what we've been working on at this particular point in time. So yeah, just check that out. Check out my music. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, all of them. You
We'll
can find
tag we'll tag everything in the show
that.
notes, and I'll get your Instagram tagged as well. Can I ask what inspired the music that you're releasing, the upcoming music?
Okay, so there's two songs that I can speak on. So the first one is really just bad decisions around, like you find yourself in a situation with somebody. It's beautiful, it works, it is effortless. And then your habits or your past, um, I will call them habits, your habits ruin it. Either bad habits that you have or something that, you somehow about the way you move just doesn't sit well with the situation, and you mess it up. And that's really what I wrote the song about. It's just called Bad Decisions. And you're basically saying, don't let bad decisions ruin us. Like, please. Like, I'm begging. That's the other side of it. Then the other song is really about this was a bit of it was aggressive. It was just like a comeback at somebody who came at me in some type of way around um insecurities around relationships that I had nothing to do with. And honestly, I felt so betrayed, and I was able to fuel that energy into the song. And the song, I won't lie, I love it. It's quite spicy, but I love it. Like
Yeah,
it's quite aggressive, but it's a brilliant song. And that's the other song. They're
nice,
quite, yeah, it works.
nice. We'll maybe roll some snippets of it.
Yes, by all means.
Um, Sweet. Okay. Well, I feel as though we've covered most things. Is there anything you'd like to add in terms of, so when you reflect on, for example, the themes that I've shared, or that I shared in the beginning about the moments that shift your life and you kind of
Mm.
not quite the same after, or what it feels like to be part of the African diaspora at the moment, joining globally, um, and finding and making homes in lands that we've maybe not touched together?
Wow. Um, I have unlearned quite a lot being in this position,
Mm,
because I was quite protected, and I was quite, I would say, like tunnel vision at home. In Nairobi, everything is quite clear. It's like one direction, textbook version of life.
yeah.
At least that was what was pitched to me, and that is what I was raised around. Um, and just coming out here, I have unlearned so much, and I've been able to open my eyes to so much around my life, gained so much power back that was taken away from me.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
and that in itself for me just, um, it kind of just has, I feel rejuvenated. I feel more confident. I feel clearer
How
around.
can
Go
I
ahead.
ask, how have you been able to gain that power back? Have you felt empowered by the African American community as well? Have you learned from them in ways about how to do that? Or has it been through your own learnings and journey? Because,
I
gaining
feel like
power back is process.
it has been a process, but I feel like it's also not from the African American community, but more so the path I've taken. Because I mean, being at Berkeley, I was when I was there, still there, but while I was there physically, I was one of about 10 Africans out of 6,000 kids. Um, and
Wow.
then, yes, and then you count the community of the African Americans, and there's about 300 students, again, out of 6,000 kids. Keep in mind, the curriculum is based on music of the African diaspora. The entire curriculum is jazz. Again, whole side notes to be discussed.
Just right now, this is a chapter that I really wanted to delve into. Being back at Berkeley, this is so you've got a whole curriculum on jazz.
And yes,
Yeah.
you're like less than 10%. But at the same time, that was one thing of it, where I was really moving in a different light. Everything I was, if I may, on high demand, being an African artist who can sing reggae, Afrobeat, R&B, hip hop. Like it was my approach and everybody's approach to me was kind of different. And I can never say that I can relate to being, to having experienced, or rather, I cannot relate to having the African American experience. Or being Black in America, even if I've been here for 4 years, because it's a whole different ball game for them than it is for mine. That's how I.
Well, it is. And I think that it's important for us to name that and call it, because our different experiences actually can inform the ways some change comes about. And it can also inform the way we move through, as you say, the way we move through the world. It's a sensitive one to unpack in many ways, but I think recognizing the differences in some experiences can inform the way.
Yeah, it can inform. Yes, it can create awareness. I definitely hear that. And this is also how I was able to be in a position where I started speaking about where are the Africans, and I would ask questions and ask very big questions, and to an extent where doors were being shut on me. But in that regard, it's like I was able to curate a space for the African community of Berkeley, with support of other Africans within the school. And that was just one thing. But I feel like through these tiny experiences, throughout being here for like the last 4 years and me just being able to like move around, a big one as well was the fact that nobody knew me. I didn't know nobody here. I was like, at least I didn't have people that knew me from my past self, meaning I was given space to just explode. I literally did, first, it's always like the first explosion and then everything settles so that you actually settle into your being. That's how I felt. Like the first approach was like me just being like, shirts open, boom, explosions, like, everything. Like, I'm curious, let's do everything. And then I slowly just came back within self and was like, okay, I've done all this and I have new information now. And I'm going to decipher my being through these different new lenses so that I can curate my being to be who they're supposed to be. That's really how I was thinking about the last 4 years. And that's when I say I've gained back power. There's been so much that I've been able to shed off, learn some more, shed, talk about it, discuss it, decipher it, like break it down and be like, oh, this actually means this like this. Why does it feel like this? Because of A, B, C, D, blah, blah, blah. And a big one that for me, which I know my mother would possibly like should do to me, will be like the dynamic around religion, because I am spiritual. I believe something created life. I believe life as a whole is sacred. And that is my approach to this whole spirituality, religion. But when the second it came into like the fact that I started seeing how religion has been warped into this rule book, and it has been forced into like this dynamic of no, it has to be like this, and if it's not this, it's ungodly. It is not it, and this is where my friction came into it. But ideally from my family, where I know my family is staunch believers, and that is amazing. But the way they move is just not the way I move, and how they move with religion is not the same way I do. But today I'm comfortable saying that. Like
Yeah.
that's the difference. That is the big difference. 4 years in, I was
Yeah.
terrified before. I could never speak about this. You then spoke and you never talk back, ever.
Yeah.
Today, though, I feel more secure within self. I feel empowered. Um, and I'm definitely in a way better space mentally, emotionally, and spiritually than I was 4 years ago. So that's really
Huge.
the whole scene of exactly that. And it's been through these processes of, meeting different people, experiencing different things, encountering different things as well within the life in America, the traveling, the modeling, the singing. I just feel, yeah, I feel more put together, if anything.
Mm.
That has been,
I'm hearing, gosh, that's stunning. Thank you for sharing that.
of course.
I hear a journey of almost a boy who had a sense of themselves, and in the past 4 years, through spirituality and music creation, you have come to find something that really feels like
Home.
yeah, home. Oh, that's stunning.
Yes.
You didn't actually name it as you were describing some of the experiences at school, but you are actually the founder of the Black and African Society. Is it Black and African
It
Society?
is the Berkeley African Student Association.
Right.
BASA was
And
basically
this is founded by you, right?
yes. I started asking questions, and my questions were not being answered at Berkeley, so I basically took action. And when I said I took action, I am was one of 10 Africans while I was there, and there was no African student scholarship, like for non-existent. And there's over 200 different scholarships for God knows whatever, but there was none specifically for an African student. So I started asking questions. I find out there's only 10 Africans at the school, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I find out that like they even stopped auditioning in Africa. And I was like, huh?
Wow. So you were one of the, like, were you one of the last to get through, or?
Not even that. I feel like mine was just, I was blessed enough to have a Berkeley alumni who is the one who facilitated everything. Now imagine how many other kids are out there who are not in a position to meet the Berkeley alumni, leave alone have internet or something. I don't even know how to word that. Like my thing was shock, pure shock. I was just like, I feel like that's quite irresponsible of them as an institution that is world renowned in contemporary music, for them not to audition in one of the places where music initially started, if I may. Yes, and I would say it. In Africa, bro. Like, why are you not auditioning in Africa? Like, of all the places, you should, bro. Sorry. That was my approach. And that is obviously the fuel that got me to be like, no.
Yeah.
We need to curate something where African students can be supported. They can have a community. And even if they're like 5 of them, they can at least talk, they can work with their networks, and they can each other help each other. Even if it's dog, it would reach a point where just like, we can try get, if people, it's the first winter, they've not gotten coats or something.
Yeah.
They're available. They need housing. We can try finesse it and try get them housing. Like this was really my approach to the club.
Yeah.
But of course, it needed to be more for it to be institutionalized.
Yeah.
Within the institution. So that's really what happened. They basically took it into the school, and it became a whole club. As of how it's doing right now, I know they have a different president. I know they're about 15 students right now in it, and the rest, it's created something. You know what I'm saying? Like it's holding space for the Africans.
Yeah. So crucial. Thank you for doing that.
Of course.
I mean, exactly, because it's not small. It seems like a small step, but actually it has a ripple effect that can really make people feel just a bit more seen and less alone in what can feel very frightening and overwhelming. And, you know, just us learning the very crucial ways that we need to create these spaces for each other and create places where we can talk freely and ask the questions, as you say. So I love that you did that. Thank you. That last chapter was stunning. It was great to hear you speak about spirituality as well in the way that it's moved you. That's another thing, as you know, I'm very moved by and curious.
We love it.
Yeah, and you walk with such a bright spirit as well, you know, such light, such a electric light about you. I am excited for you guys, people, listeners of the world, to hear more from this great soul. And I know that it's just the beginning of not just an epic musical career, but a person who's going to affect every soul and room and city and town he moves in. You truly walk and move from the soul, and it's electric and contagious. And I'm so lucky to know you. So thank you so much.
Stop it. You got me blushing. Thank you so much for those kind words. Thank you. Thank you.
Truth. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Guys, I'm going to leave your Instagram, Edwardo's Instagram. I'm going to leave links to what's coming up. I'm going to leave further notes to more of the things that he's about. So definitely read all the notes and you can click and follow. But until then, I will see you, I will hear from you, or no, you'll hear from me very soon. And I'll be looking out for comments and all things very soon. So thank you for listening, tuning in, watching. And thank you.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Thank you so much. Take care.